It's Wednesday, August 6th. Voting for a strike. Air Canada flight attendants could walk off the job later this month. We'll have more on what you need to know just ahead.
We're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods.
New rules and restrictions as Nova Scotia tries to prevent more wildfires from spreading.
We'll speak when it makes sense.
Prime Minister Mark Carney says he hasn't spoken to the U.S. president in days while announcing new financial support for the softwood lumber industry.
The good news is they would have been killed instantly, so they wouldn't have suffered, but they shouldn't have been killed in the first place. This was preventable.
Damning report. The U.S. Coast Guard is placing blame on OceanGate and its late CEO for a deadly disaster 2 years ago. Stay with us, Canada. Your morning starts right now. Good morning, Canada. Welcome to Your Morning. I'm Anne-Marie Mediwake.
I'm Matt Scooby. Good morning.
Yeah, great to have you, Matt. I'm Kelsey McEwen. Hope your Wednesday is off to a great start.
I had to think for a second.
I did.
See? Short week.
I did. Short week. My kids went back to school yesterday.
Balanced calendar, right?
Yeah, we start a little bit earlier. We have more breaks throughout the year. I'm very, very thankful that the stores are completely stocked with all the back-to-school stuff because it made our back-to-school shopping much easier. But I will tell you, it was an overall successful day.
Yeah, and Charlotte's first day of school.
First day of JK.
That's exciting.
For the first time ever, all three kids are at the same school. So one drop off, one pick up. And the boys got to visit her at recess. So that was really exciting.
Game changer.
Yeah,
Game changer.
very
Love that.
much.
Let's get to news. Let's talk about the possible interruption that travelers might face here in the next few weeks. Air Canada's flight attendants have voted overwhelmingly in favor of strike action. The Canadian Union of Public Employees says its members voted 99.7% in favor of a strike if necessary. So what does that mean? It could allow them to issue a 72-hour strike notice as early as August 16th if the bargaining team decides to call for it. Now, the airline and the union have been in contract talks since the start of the year. The union represents over 10,000 flight attendants at Air Canada and Air Canada Rouge. Now, following the vote last night, Air Canada issued a statement reassuring its passengers. It reads in part, quote, "Such a vote is a normal step in the negotiation process and does not mean that any disruption will take place. Air Canada remains committed to the bargaining process and is eager to resume discussions which CUPE had suspended during the vote." Well, more restrictions have been announced in Nova Scotia to prevent additional wildfires.
We are restricting travel and activities that really aren't necessary.
The province now looking at a long stretch of hot, dry weather with very little rain. And Premier Tim Houston says Nova Scotians should stay out of the woods. Hiking, fishing, and the use of vehicles in forests are no longer accepted. And all of the trail systems are now off limits. Camping is allowed, but only on official campgrounds. There is also a hefty penalty. Anyone who doesn't follow the rules will be slapped with a $25,000 fine, which is the same amount for the ongoing burn ban. In Newfoundland, a growing wildfire there is rapidly spreading. Newfoundland and Labrador Premier John Hogan says the flames near Small Point, Adams Cove, Blackhead, Broad Cove, and Kingston has now tripled in size. Hot and dry weather in the province has so far led to 192 forest fires and multiple evacuation orders. And in Manitoba, a northern community has now been forced to flee the flames for a second time in 2 months. It's being threatened by a nearby wildfire that could cut off the only access to the First Nation near Thompson. It comes as the province announces that this is the worst wildfire season on record in the last 30 years. Over 1.5 million hectares have burned across Manitoba, which remains under a provincial state of emergency. Prime Minister Mark Carney has addressed the new increased American tariffs, announcing new financial support for the softwood lumber sector.
We will be our own best customer by relying more on Canadian lumber, Canadian softwood for Canadian projects.
The $1.2 billion package includes funding for loan guarantees and long-term support to help companies diversify their export markets. With no timeline for a new deal or any tariff reprieve, Carney told reporters in BC that he will speak to U.S. President Donald Trump, quote, when it makes sense. On Friday, the U.S. hit Canada with a 35% tariff on goods not compliant with CUSMA. Tariff rates for Canadian steel, aluminum, and copper, though, remain at 50%. Meanwhile, Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne and Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand met with Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum yesterday. Champagne said Canada is looking for trade partners it can trust and called their talks with Mexican political and business leaders, quote, very successful. Champagne said the delegation spoke about how to work together in areas like energy, autos, and security, while Anand says there is momentum building in Canada's relationship with Mexico. The UN's Assistant Secretary General says the possibility of Israel expanding operations in Gaza is deeply alarming.
This would risk catastrophic consequences for millions of Palestinians and could further endanger the lives of the remaining hostages in Gaza.
He also warns it would endanger the lives of even more Palestinians and Israeli hostages being held by Hamas. Israeli media has reported that President Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing for a full reoccupation of Gaza. U.S. President Donald Trump was asked if he'd support that plan. Trump said he wasn't aware of the suggestion and that, quote, it's going to be pretty much up to Israel. A new report has found the tragedy involving the Titan submersible was preventable.
I'm mad because it happened, and I'm sad that all these people lost their lives. And that's why, to me, it should have never happened. It shouldn't have been allowed to happen.
The report released by the U.S. Coast Guard found OceanGate had, quote, critically flawed safety practices and a toxic workplace culture. It also says Chief Executive Stockton Rush, who died in the disaster, showed negligence that contributed to the deaths and that he may have been subject to criminal liability had he survived. The Titan sub experienced a catastrophic failure 90 minutes into a dive to the wreck of the Titanic back in June of 2023. All 5 people on board were killed instantly when the sub imploded. Well, 9 people are in hospital with salmonella after eating various brands of pistachios and Dubai chocolate. Canada's Public Health Agency has issued a recall on a number of products distributed in both Ontario and Quebec under the brand names Habibi, Al Mokhtar Food Centre, and Dubai. The products were sold both online and in Quebec. In total, Health Canada says it's aware of 52 cases of the illness caused by the affected products across the country. One of them is in Manitoba, 2 in BC, 9 in Ontario, and 39 in Quebec. And the wait is almost over for new music from Bailey Zimmerman.
She's a heartbreak coming in cold.
The new album, titled Different Night, Same Rodeo, is set to drop Friday, including collabs with Luke Combs and Diplo. It follows his debut album, Religiously, which was wildly successful. Zimmerman first started his career by uploading videos on TikTok about 5 years ago after working at a meat processing plant and laying gas pipelines in Illinois. Have to love some of the jobs and what social media has clearly done for some of these careers, including Bailey Zimmerman and the new album coming soon.